Mr. President, Councilor Garduno, that is correct.
Isn't it true that there's quite a few folks who are medics that are right now at a desk job that could be employed?
Well, if I could get, I can give you the staffing picture if the council wants to hear it.
Well, I just want to know that part of the staffing picture.
There are some people that are paramedics that are assigned to support divisions. They bid through to those positions based on seniority and the terms of the collective bargaining agreement. To move those personnel without their consent would result in grievances and lawsuits.
You mean an individual can enter into a collective bargaining individually and say, I want to be at a desk job?
Well, Councilor Garduno, Mr. President, Councilor Garduno, some of those folks have spent a number of years, 10 or more years on a rescue company, and they chose to be relieved of that function and move to a support division where many of them are doing good work for the citizens. I think many of them would like to remain where they're at, and based on the bidding process that we currently have, it would cause some collective bargaining issues with the labor union.
Mm-hmm. And the way I've heard it and the way what I understand is that some are a year ago graduates from medical training that are also on desk duty. So they wouldn't fit what you just described.
Mr. President, Councilor Garduno, that has not been the case under my term. People that graduate from paramedic school are promoted or moved to the field where they provide paramedic services for a number of years. The rotation off the rescue normally takes 10 or more years, either onto a suppression unit or into a support division. But most of our paramedics serve their entire careers on the rescue. This is why we're talking about expanding our ALS system so that paramedics have a greater career opportunities and a different career path, so we can get more out of them. And to talk specifically about our staffing levels, there's a number of paramedics that are assigned to suppression units because of the collecting or because they're not in the paramedic pay plan. We can't use them in a paramedic capacity without adding them to the pay plan. Again, we're getting into the ALS expansion project, which is a better utilization of our paramedic resources.
Oh, well, that's interesting, because just recently when you talked about Mr. President, when you talked about the ALS system, it was that we had a shortage and therefore we wanted to put more people in more dispersed units, I guess.
Mr. President, Councilor Garduno, I'm sorry if I was confusing. By expanding the program, the suppression units, the paramedic program, there's some 32 paramedics assigned to the suppression program or division that are not part of the paramedic pay plan. By expanding our ALS services, we'll have access to those individuals to provide that service. To move those individuals into the rescue division, like I said, would cause some issues with the collective bargaining agreement and the labor union and those individuals.
Well, I feel for you, but I also, Mr. President, would like to request the staffing patterns and where these people are assigned in years of service.
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Arnold Jones, then Councilor Benton.
Mr. President and Chief, just two quick questions. For this $800,000, if I'm reading you correctly, this is unanticipated money. So given if we were to pass this, what would be the reasonable ramp-up time to actually accomplish the goal of this appropriation?
There would be several things that would have to take place. There would be an expansion class for new hires that would have to take place, so they would be rolled into the next hiring process, where we hire 8 additional persons. And then our next paramedic training program starts in September. They graduate and become licensed about August of 2014, and that's when we can use them for paramedic manpower. So you're actually looking at a 12 to 14-month window to make that happen. And I have to explain that because of the attractive pension reform with the 90% benefit cap, we are expecting a higher number of retirees this year. We're probably going to max out on the number of firefighters that we can train given our infrastructure. And when you look at our paramedic training program, we
Thank you. Mr. President and Chief Breen, so help me here to understand just a couple of points. If we pass this appropriation after it is all applied, we're looking at 1.5 to 2 years for expected improved response time. Would that be a correct reading?
Mr. President, Councilor Arnold Jones, I would say anywhere from August puts us out at about 15 months.
Okay. If we do not do this, how does that affect the response times of Rescue 2? I'm hearing them talk about it. Does it make a difference?
Well, we have relatively good response times in that area. Mesa del Sol, they're obviously a little bit long because we don't have a facility close proximity to that development area. But with the expansion of the ALS program and the amount of redundancy that we have in Station 1, 3, and 11, we're covering our response times. And then by adding a paramedic to that engine company, that'll even better our ALS with paramedic response times. And again, it wouldn't be my highest need within the department.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Myers.
So, Chief,
Sorry, Councilor Myers. Let's go
go ahead.
Councilor Benton and then Councilor Myers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we can talk about how long we could wait to do this, or how long it'll take, or how long we could put it off, but it doesn't change the fact we just built a brand new station out there for, what was it, Chief, 3.5 million or so?
About $3 million.
Roughly, and you know, it does have an emergency bay. Why do we build these things with an EMS bay if we're not going to use them? And again, starting 7.5 years ago, the argument for the one of the arguments for the obsolescence of Station 2 was that it didn't have an EMS bay. So, Chief, you and I went through a lot of brain damage to get that thing built, and
Yes, sir.
you know, I understand that it may not be your top priority, but I think it's the top priority of people in our district, the top priority of people in the North Valley. I don't, you know, and I know that response time